Hi, and welcome back to the Proof of Sound podcast. I'm Reed, and as always, allow me to introduce some of the best gentle dudes you could talk music with. Jake Smith, the classic rock historian.
Hey, hey.
And Devan Cooley, the pop punk tech guru.
We're back at it.
And listeners, you may be wondering, now hold on just a gosh darn second. There's normally a fourth guy. Well, you'd be right. We're normally joined by the former hardcore kid, Kyle Phelps. However, he recently took a trip with his wife to the Pacific Northwest. And I don't know a better way to say this, but he was kidnapped by bears. Right, guys?
That's what I heard.
Rest in peace, Kyle.
Man.
Yeah.
Rest in power.
Rest in power, actually. And
Because he's become one of the bears now.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard.
He fit right in.
whoa, it was like a werebear?
More or less.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he has always been a Cubs fan. Now he's a Bears fan.
What?
That's terrible. That's the worst joke I've ever told.
No, it's I love it. I love it. I was just so confused by that text message he sent us where he revealed all this information. I guess that was like mid-transformation.
Wait, what text did you get? Mine just said,
He's fully transformed.
Yeah.
he texted me at midnight, so that might have been the difference.
I was the first, and then, yeah. Devin,
Yeah.
did you get a text at all?
I did not, sadly.
Oh, man. Okay, he was just too far gone at that
Yeah.
point. He was just eating out of honey pots, and it was just...
He tried to spell
Fit right
Devan,
in.
but his paws were too big to manage the keyboard.
Yeah,
No.
just broke through the phone with his claw.
Okay,
Yeah.
this bit's over.
However, despite his bear transformation, I have it on good authority that Kyle will be back for the next episode. So today we're just running as a trio. I can't wait to tell us how he unbared himself, you know?
Yeah, I'm sure he's going to be real happy that we're going to make him do that.
However, in case you need a reminder of what we're here to do, we are for today three likable gents who get together to talk about the music we just can't get out of our heads while also engaging in a title track discussion that could range from a variety of things, you know, music topics, in-depth album reviews, guest interviews, a whole playlist of things. You can listen in at any of your preferred streaming services, whether that's Apple Music, Spotify, even YouTube, just by searching Proof of Sound Podcast. You'll know you found us when you see the Blue Jay as our cover art. Why? We don't know yet. But Jake, what do we do with the bird?
We respect the Blue Jay.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. You can also, of course, keep up with the show and join in on our discussions by following us on Instagram and Twitter at Proof of Sound Pod. That's Proof of Sound, P-O-D. Speaking of numbers, boys, when you really think about it, today's kind of like our Led Zeppelin 4 of episodes, you know?
You know that album wasn't even called Led Zeppelin 4, right?
No. Wait, no. Everything I've been told is a lie. What?
No, it was named, the name of the album, you know those like 4 runes, like the symbols?
Yeah.
That was the name of the album.
Runes?
Yeah, I mean, no, it wasn't called Runes. It was the 4 runes. That was the album title. Like the leaf and the Zoso, all that. That was the album title.
Oh, I think...
So sometimes you'll see people call it the Rune album. Sometimes people just call it the Zoso because that's the only word. But yeah, Led Zeppelin 4 is just kind of, because it's been the easiest name for it. Yeah, that's why it's called Led Zeppelin 4. Just because you can't just really say, oh, what's the one with the leaf and then the 3 circles? Yeah, no, it's, yeah.
Okay. See, I was going to say Led Zeppelin 4 is a much better title than just random collection of rune images. So
I don't know. I really like that as an album title.
Okay.
Maybe if they have a reunion tour.
That's it. Yeah. That's
Devin,
when they come back.
I think that means that we need to name this episode after like 4 runes that we just make up on the spot.
Okay. That'll be great for the SEO.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Terrible idea.
Well, let's go ahead and tune in to what's on cue. This is, of course, the section of the podcast where we talk about what we have been listening to lately. We've really got some heavy hitters to talk about today. I'm pretty excited. Jake, do you want to start us off by telling us about the 13th studio album by rap legend Nas?
I would, except I do want to make an observation first. We record this podcast most of the time on Friday evening. And it's starting now that we're about to record the 4th episode to become apparent that one of the weaknesses of that is that it's New Music Friday. There is brand new music that came out today that I would love to talk about, but I just don't have enough information yet. So I listened to the new Lorde album, Solar Power, today. I managed to get one spin in, but I don't want to go too hard on that because I've only heard it once.
Right.
But my gut instinct says if you heard the first few singles like I did and you were like, I don't know about this.
Yeah.
give it a listen, because there were some songs on there that were much better than those initial singles. I'm not going to say that it's a masterpiece from one listen. It doesn't feel like Melodrama did, but I think it's pretty good.
I love to hear that, because I feel like both the weeks leading up to the Lorde release plus today, I feel like all I saw on social media were people taking easy dunks on Lorde, being like, well, we knew this was going to happen. We knew it wasn't going to be good. She's into this wellness stuff, like blah, 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 blah. So I really love hearing a take that's like, hold on a second, this is actually more worth your time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go out and say from one listen that I feel like this is her next masterpiece,
right.
But I mean, there's something there. And, I did not think that Solar Power was a very good single. I didn't love Stoned at the Nail Salon. But the album tracks have turned out to actually be much more solid.
Yeah.
So if you've been skeptical, give it a shot.
I've been very skeptical about this one.
Yeah.
I've not enjoyed any of the singles so far. I think Mood Ring was the last one, Mood Rings that came out just this week, and it was a letdown again.
Big time.
So I'm really hoping that the album really comes together a lot better.
A Lorde album with like good deep cuts only is interesting. I like that.
Yeah.
Who would have predicted this, like in the immediate aftermath of Melodrama? I think we're all prepared for like Lorde to be the next true savant. So it's interesting. It's just an interesting narrative. Maybe like next episode, we can really kind of dig into that.
Yeah,
there we go.
That sounds good.
More once everybody's heard it. But yeah, as Reed mentioned, Nas has released a new album called King's Disease 2. I consider myself to be not like the biggest fan of Nas's overall catalog, but I do think that for a time, he was maybe the best rapper on the planet. Like, I think there was a brief period in the early to mid 90s where no one was doing it better than Nas. I said 1,000 times, maybe never on the podcast, but Illmatic is my favorite rap album ever released. I think Illmatic is fantastic. I love It Was Written. I think that's also a great album. But then since then, really, Nas has not had much of anything that's really broken through. I mean, he's tried a few different styles, and a lot of Nas's history is also tied up in his beef with Jay-Z. And Jay-Z, we know, is kind of like the rap king, for lack of a better term. He just kind of fits that mold. And so for Nas, he seems like he's become an underdog. Maybe for like the last 20 to 25 years, he's been an underdog. And last year, he released an album called King's Disease, where he seemed to be hinting back at some of that Illmatic sound, kind of trying to get back to the roots of that sound. But when I listened to it, I thought it was like one of those like pale imitation albums where you listen to the album and you say, okay, I see what you're doing, but it doesn't necessarily do what you think it's going to do. It doesn't recapture Illmatic. It doesn't capture that early spirit that he had. This album, King's Disease 2, comes much closer in my mind to recapturing the magic of Illmatic because he doesn't try to recreate it. Okay. So his flow is impeccable. Nas has, and I don't know how y'all feel about this, but his voice might be just, and I'm not talking about what he's saying or anything like that or his beats, but just the sound of his voice is one of the best voices to deliver rap that I've ever heard. He's just got this clarity of his voice. You can always understand what he's saying. He doesn't mumble anything, and that's not a shot at like mumble rap, but he is always very clear. He's got this kind of slight rasp in the back of his voice, and he's not afraid to get aggressive on certain lines and then lay back and kind of sit back in a flow other times. He's very, very aware of when he should use certain aspects of his voice. And so for a long time, he wasn't really using that strength. He would have very short clipped verses. He would have beats that like never had a groove to them. Like they kind of went strange places. The album that he recorded a few years ago with Kanye West as the producer kind of did that as well, where the beats were maybe a little too fractured to really capture what he was good at. But King's Disease 2, this new one, has a lot more attention paid to creating beats that give him a good flow to ride on top of. And these beats also sound very modern. Yeah. Whereas the first King's Disease, like I said, it tended to go back in that 90s direction. It alluded to that Illmatic sound, but didn't capture the same energy of it. These beats feel like with a different rapper over them, you could have somebody doing a very popular modern rap song, except instead of that, you get Nas, who has his very old school way of rapping. Right. And for me, that is what I love. Like, that is my favorite type of rap, are just rappers. And I think we even talked about this with Tyler, the Creator, a couple episodes ago, is I like rappers who lock into a flow or lock into a verse and they write it and write it and write it and write it. And Nas does that about better than anybody when he's on top of his game. And so that's like one of the main things that I love about this album is that he is unafraid to go deep. And then on some of these verses, some of the topics that he covers, there's a song, my favorite one on the album is the song Nobody, which has Lauryn Hill on it as well.
Mm-hmm. Great song.
And it's just this perfect examination of what it's like to be considered by some people to be a has-been. And Nas looks at it from the perspective of somebody who has been a career man who hasn't really had a hit album in decades. And then Lauryn Hill comes in and she examines it as someone who decided to step out of the game and has been ridiculed for that as well. Because we all know like the miseducation of Lauryn Hill was massive and she kind of just disappeared. Yeah. And so to get not only Nas, but then this counterpoint of Lauryn Hill and for him to elevate her voice as well. And really she has a better verse on that song than he does.
Yeah.
It just speaks to both of their talents so well and almost makes me want an album where the two of them go together the whole time. Like that would be amazing. I don't necessarily mean to say this album is like excellent. I'm not going to say that this is one of my favorite albums of the year. There are moments where it drags. There are a few songs I don't like. Eminem has a guest verse on one song.
I was going to ask about the end verse. Yeah.
It doesn't hit the same to me.
Yeah. I was going to say that too, where I feel like I like the rest of the song and I love the EPMD reunion that he kind of brought together. But then when Eminem comes, I just feel like Eminem brings like a bazooka to this very delicate thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He just starts showing off and I'm like, dude, it's great that you can rap this fast and do all these different flows and everything. But like, it's not complimenting the song. It's just about you now.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's especially apparent when you get to the very last song on the album, which is called, I think, Nas is Good.
Yeah.
Which to me read as almost like not a send-up, because a send-up would be a little bit more comical, but just like a commentary on the typical rap braggadocio, like that genre of rap song, which, you know, Nas himself has used from time to time as his format, even on this album. But on Nas is Good, he almost kind of takes like a different look at like what that means.
Yeah.
So to hear that, but then also have Eminem on this track doing the thing is maybe a little out of place.
I think the funny thing too is even when I first heard Eminem on the track, I was like, wait, is that Eminem? Yeah, that is him. He's kind of toned down a little bit. And then about 20 seconds later, it was like, nah, yeah, that's him. That's definitely him. He's back at it.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's rhyming words with other words that are spelled out. And it was just like, okay, yep, Eminem's here.
There he is.
And it feels a little off here.
He started doing that single word flow where he was just like, da-da, da-da, da-da. Yeah.
Yes, and it kept going. And that was, he was on that track for quite a while too.
The beat switch. Yeah. It was too much.
Right. But I did really enjoy this album, especially after some of the rap albums that I've been listening to recently. This was like a nice break because it's just so much about the flow and about the rhythm and about the rhymes that he'll lay down, just like stacked on top of each other. And I really, really enjoyed that. It's a throwback, but at the same time, it doesn't feel dated at all. And that's what I really enjoyed about it.
Yeah. I hate that I can't bring like some really good lyrics to the table, but honestly, there are so many good lines on this album that it's impossible for me to pick any one line to kind of bring out as a standout.
Yeah.
And on top of that too, the thing that Nas does so well is with some artists, you can pick a line and you can say, here's a good example of a line. It's like 10 words. With Nas, sometimes you need the whole context to really like feel what he's saying. And that's just a delight to listen to. It takes me back to the first time I ever heard the song New York State of Mind on Illmatic, which is just this one long, massive flow. It's just great to hear Nas kind of feeling like he's back as on top of his game as he's been in a very, very long time.
Yeah, no. And Jake, you were talking about the production. I had never listened to King's Disease, the original King's Disease. And I know that you said you didn't like that one, but of course that won him Best Rap Album from the Grammys last year.
I like it.
Yeah. Okay.
I just don't think it's anything super special.
Yeah, versus this one. And I think, you know, both albums are produced by Hit Boy, who, especially on this one, I really liked hearing, he did have a couple of cuts where Nas was back into kind of that soulful, kind of more 90s laid back thing. But then when he would get on some like trap production, I was like, okay, Nas, like you can do this. Yeah.
And doing it better than a lot of people that are younger and doing it for the first time now.
Yeah. Sometimes.
So not all the time and not everybody.
The song YKTV, I feel like kind of had that beat a little bit. And, part of the trap thing is that you'll kind of say a line and then you repeat it. And there were just a couple times where I feel like he was repeating the line and I was like, it just didn't hit for me. It was a little slow, or I was like, this one isn't a standout, but I thought the song Rare was a much better example of that going really well.
To my knowledge, seems to be the most successful song off this so far.
Yeah.
And well-deserved. I think if you were to take the name Nas off of it, this is a song that could hang in the top of the charts.
Sure. I think the only thing that I had with this album, I listened to it a couple times. I loved the song with Lauryn Hill. I loved the song Pressure. I thought Death Row East was really fascinating.
Yeah, it's a great song.
With its history of Tupac and everything else. Yeah. But there were just a couple times where I feel like Nas's like God complex kind of got in the way for me, or his mogul status where he would just be talking about his investments and his like tech company. And I was like, man, I don't care. Yeah.
Comes with the territory.
Yeah. And then the song Sunday Brunch, or Brunch on Sundays.
That's the worst one.
Yeah. He's got this terrible line where he's like, #Sunday Fun Day. And I'm like, no, Nas,
no. That song could be cut and nothing would be lost.
Yeah.
Like I said, there are things that hold this album back. I'm not going to say this is one of my top albums of the year, but it's just really fun to listen to and great to hear a rap album where I could just listen to the rap.
Yeah. No, and I totally hear what you mean too about a legend who maybe hasn't had the right production or just the right crop of songs in a while, and then suddenly he's kind of back to form a little bit. It's always exciting, for sure. Yep. All right. Even though Kyle is not here, he did manage with his bear claws to send us an album that he wanted to be part of this discussion, and that's Pet Symmetry's Future Suits. So really quick, if you've never heard of Pet Symmetry, it is the creative outlet for singer Evan Weiss of the bands Into It, Overwit, as well as There, with which There has Mike Kinsella of American Football in it, and a third band called The Progress. And then it's also got members of the band Dowsing and the band Rat Boys that Jake, Kyle, and I love, but Devan doesn't like it.
No, I do like Rat Boys.
You do like Rat Boys?
Yeah.
Your tune has changed.
What a twist.
No, this was one that I came to later. I haven't really dug into them fully, but what I have listened to, I've really enjoyed.
Okay. I was trying to set a trap for you.
Sorry, I'm not falling for it.
Yeah. You just leaped right over.
I know.
Yeah. All right.
No trap for this rat.
Whoa.
That could have been funnier.
Yeah.
It's okay.
That's my bad.
It's okay. So Kyle says that he feels like with Pet Symmetry's Future Suits, it's a heavier, slightly punkier Death Cab for Cutie. And he also wanted to note that a guy from Turnstile remarked that this is what he wishes current day Weezer sounded like, which
that just ties in so perfectly to what we talked about last week.
I feel like Weezer haunts this podcast, and we've never actually reviewed.
We'll never escape.
Yeah. But what did you guys think of Pet Symmetry's Future Suits?
So it's funny that you brought up Weezer, because the opening line of this album made me go, this straight up could be a Weezer song. Yeah. Like, unquestionably.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed this album a good bit. I think it feels a little longer than it really is. It's only like 37, 38 minutes. I thought it felt longer than that, to be honest, as an album. But it's interesting because we've talked about, or you talked about just then, how it's a range of guys from a mix of other bands. And that's what I really feel from the album. I can't really place it in terms of like saying, oh, it's this band, and this band sort of all put together. It's like a really wide range of sounds that they've really put together for this.
Yeah.
And even for like track to track, they can kind of vary pretty wildly, I would say. But I was unable to really place exactly like, okay, this song makes me think of this band, but like it's completely different in some ways.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, really enjoyed it. It's a mix of just about everything in terms of a bunch of like mid 2000s to even now, like pop punk at times, or even just rock. Yeah. I really liked it.
Sure. Jake?
Yeah, I mean, I thought this was a really solid album when I listened to it. It had a lot of just immediate appeal. It's an album that you turn on and you know you're liking it. I think if there's one thing I could say, it's that this is one of those albums where, do y'all ever have this experience where you listen to something and it sounds really good, but you think to yourself, I'm probably not going to listen to this again.
Sure.
Like you enjoyed it
Yeah.
in the moment, but it's not something that's going to become like on your constant rotation.
Yeah.
Right.
I think just as a necessity, given the amount of music that I listen to and that I know we all do, there are just some albums that might be really good, but just don't stick with us enough to stay in the rotation.
Yeah.
And that was the immediate impression I got from this. Is like, yeah, this is good. Somebody's going to hear this and it's going to become their favorite thing. But for me, it's just like that solid 7. It's like,
Right.
wow, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
It was great.
I think I'm a little lower on it, honestly. And it's, Jake, I agree with your thing that I feel like somebody else is going to listen to this and be like, whoa, this is just a little too clean for me. It's just a little too, I found the singer to be a little grating. Like he's got a great voice, but just in terms of, it was very boyish and it was just very earnest in a way that I couldn't get past, especially the song Bootlicker. It was just way too, it was like yogurt rock or something like that.
Rock.
It was just this like really pillowy, like that kind of thing. Although I will say, I feel like one thing that was really evident to me was that, like we've already said, these guys are from a bunch of different bands. I do think the playing, the musicianship is great, especially the song Pet Sympathy. I don't know if this was a standout for you guys, but it kind of like starts with these kind of angular guitars and then kind of goes into this like bossa nova shuffle for a little bit and kind of hangs out there and then goes back into the rock thing. I thought that was really cool. But then there were just not enough moments to me where I felt like that creativity was just fully on display. So I don't know. I was pretty weak on this one. But again, if you like, kind of a Death Cab for Cutie or kind of a softer, if you're anywhere, if you orbit the planet of emo at all, I feel like this album is for you.
I think going back to what Jake said, this probably isn't one that I'm going to return to necessarily.
Yeah.
But I would really enjoy going to see this band live.
Yeah.
And I feel like that would probably change my tune on it and I would connect with it even more.
Sure. Last thing on Pet Sympathy really quick. So if you've seen what this album looks like, you'll notice that it's a QR code. Were you guys curious? Did you scan the QR code?
I thought about it, but I didn't do it.
See, the QR code was on my phone.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's very hard to scan something that's on my phone.
That's fair.
I'm just not fast enough. It
I
doesn't
know.
work that way. Yeah.
I know. You got to take the top camera off. Well, I was listening on a desktop and I did happen to scan it. And it's kind of crazy because it takes you to the Pet Symmetry website where there is a video game that you can play. And it's this like kind of 16, old school 90s, little video game. And it's got the music and kind of a chip tune from this album. And it's really weird. You like control the band members and they're going on tour. And then fans who are zombies crash their bus and take their instruments. And so then you have to collect money and collect the instruments. And to appease the fans, you throw LPs at them and they say, "Ooh, I love merch." And they walk away. And along the way, you can pick up weed, mushrooms, McDonald's fries, and they give you like weird different power-ups. Like the weed makes the screen fuzzy and the mushrooms like make everything really wavy and distorted. And there's a bummer meter where I guess like if you get attacked by fans too much, you get sad. It was really weird. I played about 5 minutes of it, but I haven't seen another band release a video game in tandem with an album that has a QR code as the cover. So just wanted to point out that detail.
Yeah.
I'll wait till the IGN review.
Moving on from Pet Symmetry, Devan, you've been exploring a new genre for you lately by way of Joy Orbison. Still Slippin' Volume 1, I believe.
Yes. So this was a particularly busy couple of weeks in terms of work for me. So when I'm super, super busy at work, I don't always get to listen to music. Or when I do, I try to listen to something that's really relatively chill in the background, that sort of thing. And this was an album that I saw, and it was listed as a dance album. And I was like, sure, why not? I'm going to jump into it, give it a shot. It's something new, and it was a genre that I'd never really jumped into or hadn't in a very, very long time. And so this is an album, the artist himself, his name is Peter O'Grady, but he goes by Joy Orbison or even Joy O at times. This was an album that like I started, and it was a perfect like mix of the time of day and what I was doing with my headphones in, head down, and this album like starts, and I listened to it start to finish. And this is not an album that I would return to just for fun or one that I would listen to like on a long drive in the car or something like that. But it was so perfect, just like head down, working nonstop, like this endless drive forward that the music follows, and this focus that I could go into and just like get work done, that sort of thing. So not to belittle the album or anything like that, but it was perfect as something like in the background. And especially on headphones, I found that was key for this album, because it's such an interesting mix of, obviously with it being an electronic music album, it's a lot of, different synths and bass and that sort of thing, but also it feels very grounded because there's this mix of like these organic sounds that he mixes into there as well.
Some conversations.
Right, as well as conversations.
Yeah.
So I felt like, especially when it comes to not so much the conversations that are there, but the just overall the sound of the album, it came through so much cleaner over headphones. And especially when it came to those kinds of like crisp textures on this album. I really enjoyed the texture that I found, especially when listening to it on headphones. But I dug this album, but I think more so it was something that it's piqued my interest into this genre as a whole. And so especially, working like, over the next few weeks, I'm going to try and dig into more of this genre and see like what I've been missing. That's what I'm excited for.
I've got some recs for you.
Thank you.
Tell you right
Big time,
away,
yeah.
Against All Logic. Check it out.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%.
Good stuff.
100%. Devan, what were some standout tracks for you?
So one of them to me was Runners. That's one that I really dug. And the other thing that I forgot to mention is this album at times felt to me like a bit of a throwback. And this is a very weird reference, but to like late 90s and early 2000s video game background music.
Okay.
Like the menu tracks.
Okay.
And that's a lot of like dance music is what it was, especially like sports games back then.
Yeah.
They didn't want to pay for the licenses for these other kind of music. But for whatever reason, it was kind of like a throwback to that, and I really liked it. But the song Runners was a standout track for me. But again, this was one where it was necessarily not so much like the individual tracks, but just like the flow through the whole thing, head down.
Yeah.
And then I looked down and I'm like, I listened to an hour of music almost. But yeah, I liked it.
Devan, I just want to tell you something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. After last week, that awful pileup that was Faye Webster.
Right.
You all accused me of loving boring music.
Yeah, I will agree.
Then
This
you
one's
put
pretty
this
boring.
on.
Yeah.
I love this thing, man.
Okay,
Actually, I really like it. It's great. I was really impressed with it, to be honest. No, I when you told me that, like, hey, I'm going to put this Joy Orbison thing on and it's going to be this electronic album, I pictured something more, just given the album cover and the name, the play on Roy Orbison, right?
Mm-hmm.
I got that right. Okay, thank God. I was like, did I forget the dude for a second? I didn't. I thought that it was going to be like a Purity Ring or a Churches or something more synth poppy.
Yeah, it's not that.
No, it was much more spare, atmospheric. I'm a big fan of ambient electronic music. So the Aphex Twin, Gas, those sorts of artists. And I don't think it's quite in that camp, but kind of like you, I feel like when I first listened to it, it was like late at night. My fiance was still out with a friend. And so I just kind of had the apartment to myself. And it was this very kind of late night, like chill, laid back listen. I really dug it. I think one thing too that you were talking about with that, you feel like it's kind of like video game background music or almost dance music. I felt like I heard a lot of hip hop influence too. Like there were a couple songs here and there that kind of had like a trap beat to it,
right?
Where he was mixing those two worlds together, which I thought was really interesting,
as well as some rap here and there.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. For me, the song "Froth Sipping" was my favorite. It has this really great kind of 80s Casio bass keyboard thing. It's like do 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 that I really loved. And the song "Born Slipping" as well, I thought was really good. So good pick.
I was bored.
I knew it.
I hear you.
No, electronic music for me, being that in my line of work, you can't really just zone out and listen to music while I work. I can't do that. So that situation is lost on me. I can't really put myself in those shoes. So when I listen to electronic music, I'm looking for engagement, and I love stuff that really kind of makes this dense collage of sounds. So I like One of Tricks Point Never. I like Forest Swords, that sort of thing. That's more my speed of electronic music. Was something I can really get lost in. With this, when I listen to it, I kind of am like, okay, cool. I hear this one element, and then it repeats for a while, and then he'll add like one new element. I'm like, okay, there's another element. But there's not much going on. So it's like, as long as I'm paying attention, I hear each element as it comes in, and then the song ends. And it's not that great. I want something that when I listen to it, in any one moment, I can listen to 9, 10, 11, 12 different things that are going on in the song. And to me, One A Tricks Point Never, Four of Swords, those are the kinds of artists that give me that sort of electronic music experience. Or even something, to give you something a little bit more light, Burial as well.
Oh, okay.
It gives me a lot more meat to really dig into.
Yeah.
In terms of things to zone in on. It's not bad. Like I say, boring. I don't necessarily mean that to slag it. I just mean that it was something that it's not anything that I would reach for 99% of the time.
Yeah. And Devan, I think you made a really good point where when you first listened to it, it was just kind of the perfect situation.
Right.
Because I feel like there was another day, it's been really rainy here in Birmingham. And I feel like there was a day where the clouds were just super gray. There was nothing going on outside and I was listening to it. And it was just the perfect setting to kind of like cast my mind into. So yeah, I think if you're trying to listen to it, it's just like, can't listen to this like a Nas album for sure.
Right.
100% no.
Yes.
But if it's kind of complementing an area or a scene that you're already kind of part of, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah. It's not one to listen to for entertainment, but I did really enjoy it. And I think, like I said, I'm most excited to see like what other things that I've been missing out from this one. Yes.
Devan, I want to, oh man, it sounds like Jake's got recommendations. I've got recommendations. Yeah. Electronic music's great. Okay.
Reed, what you got?
Yeah, if we can take it back to hip hop for a second, I wanted to share some thoughts I have about the resurrection of Mr. Isaiah Rashad. So, with Isaiah Rashad, if you've never heard of him, you've probably heard of the label that he is a part of, which is Top Dog Entertainment, TDE. That, of course, is the home of artists like Kendrick Lamar, probably the biggest rapper of our generation, I would say. As well as SZA and Schoolboy Q and Absol and J-Rock, kind of the Black Hippie collective that turned a lot of heads in kind of the early to mid 2010s. Isaiah was kind of part of that class too. He released an album/EP called the Sylvia Demo in 2014 I believe it's 2014, that I downloaded at one point but never really listened to. I remember the album cover, but I don't think I ever actually put ears on it. He came back in 2016 with another album called The Sun's Tirade and then disappeared for about 5 years up until this new album. To give a little context, because I feel like that's the story of what happened during those 5 years is important to this album. Isaiah kind of went off the deep end a little bit. He succumbed to some really nasty addictions to alcohol and Xanax that not only were wrecking his personal health and his mental health, but also drained his bank account. He was reportedly just spending frivolously on himself, on family and friends, to where he was so broke after living in LA, he moved back to his hometown of Chattanooga to live on his mom's couch and went back to the Top Dog president and said, "Hey, I know you want an album, but I really need help," and ended up going to rehab in 2019 and then started working on this album in January 2020. So the album is called The House is Burning. And I feel like that is, again, just so evocative of these past 5 years. I feel like this album is basically kind of him trying to grapple with what's been going on in his life and how he set his home base on fire and his life on fire. But rather than run around frantically and try to put stuff out, I feel like he is inside of this burning home and is very calm about it. He's kind of surveying it. If you listen to this album, what you're going to notice is that it is an extremely chill, laid back, vibey listen. This is not a Nas album by any means. He is not trying to paint this super clear portrait of his life, what's going on. Instead, I feel like he is, one thing that he said is that, rather than kind of overthink things like he has on his past two albums, he was really just trying to be in the moment with this one, just kind of let things kind of go as they were. And as a result, it isn't the most friendly thing. When I first heard this 16-track album, I was like, man, 100% not for me. I don't like this. Nope, this isn't for me. But there was enough there, especially with the production and how woozy and druggy and dreamlike it is, where I was like, I want to go back. I want to explore this house burning all over again. And as I've gone back, just like any other grower that I love, more and more details start to pop out. I start to catch part of his verses that I didn't before. I start to notice things in the production. I start to appreciate the features that he's got on here. And like Jake, I'm not here to say that this is like one of the best albums of the year. I don't think that. However, it's been one of those that has just really surprised me in terms of where I was on my first listen and where I am now on my like 8th or 9th. And he also covers a lot of ground here. There are songs that are just these like trunk knocking Southern rap, just like bazookas that are awesome. Then he's also got these kind of more chill, druggy, kind of dreamy tracks. Then he kind of goes into some R&B here and there. He really just kind of goes where his mind wants to go, especially, again, just kind of with that thing of like, I'm not going to think about it super hard. I'm just going to do it. I found it pretty compelling here and there. I don't think it's perfect. There are a couple songs that I wish I could understand him better. He's not only kind of mumbling his verses, he's also very cryptic in his lyrics. He's using a lot of slang that I quite frankly just don't understand. But I think the portrait he's trying to paint of a man who's trying to rebuild his life and, kind of look his demons in the eye and warn others of the pitfalls that he found himself in is good and compelling for sure. So what did you guys think?
I didn't like it. But I only gave it really 1.5 listens. I didn't even get to the end of a second. And, when you know the context of the story, it almost feels like bad to talk bad about this album, because the statements that he's making, the mission behind it to kind of rebuild his life is a very compelling one. And obviously I wish him the best. In terms of a listening experience, to me and my taste, this didn't quite hit it.
Okay.
Mostly because he's using his life as a template, yes. And so a lot of his lyrical content is compelling, but the delivery method I found to be kind of just a recitation of lots of the current, very popular and overdone trends in rap music that we're seeing. A lot of very generic trap beats, a lot of very tinny sounding atmospheric synth sounds, and very clipped verses at times. Whereas, I was just talking about how Nas will hit a flow and write it.
Yeah.
On some of these songs, he'll have flows that last 2-3 syllables max, which to me is just very difficult to listen to because I feel like I'm in a car that's braking and going and braking and going.
Sure.
Which may be the same metaphor I used to Wayne Tower, the creator. So I apologize if I'm reusing that. But it's just very hard for me to get into that particular type of delivery. That being said, again, some of these lyrics are very compelling, and knowing the background helps a ton. There's some albums where you can listen to it whenever you want to and you're going to be fine. You absolutely have to know the background to fully appreciate this. But I didn't immediately gel with it. You said you didn't either, so maybe I just need to listen to it a few more times and something will click with me. But that's kind of just where I landed initially.
Yeah, no, and I apologize to our listeners, because if there's one thing that these guys know, it's that I am such a defender of the grower. I'm very patient when it comes to albums, maybe to a fault. So sometimes I feel like when I recommend stuff, it's like, you've got to let it evolve in your own mind for a little bit. It's not, some of the stuff I recommend is not always the easiest to get on first shot. Really quick, Devan, before I get your thoughts, there's one of my favorite songs is called R.I.P. Young, where I feel like he also is sort of talking about the demise of his youth, especially maybe spent doing things that he shouldn't have been doing. But he's got this one lyric that I really love, which is, they tell me I'm a cool cat. Fuck that. Tell them bitches I'm a top dog, which is his like reference to his label, which I just thought was awesome. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I think like both of you guys said, these two albums that we're talking about when it comes to the rap albums, between this and the Nas album, couldn't be more different.
Yeah.
They also couldn't be coming from two more wildly different places in their lives.
Completely.
And you really, really hear that, not just in the production, but in the lyricism. We were talking about it earlier, Reed and I, earlier in the week, because we knew we were going to talk about these two albums. And I knew I was going to have to sort of pick which one of these I probably would lean more towards.
Yeah.
And I definitely do lean more towards the Nas album for sure. Especially when you're just talking about how clever the lyrics are, just like top to bottom. But this one, I will say the first probably 6 or 7 tracks, I just dig the sound that it has. That production really comes through. I think by the time you get to probably after Headshots, it kind of lost me for a bit.
Okay.
I feel like it's probably a bit too long of an album.
I agree.
Especially when you're talking about, like you said, 16 tracks.
Yeah.
Especially towards the end, I was like, all right, I think we've been doing this for quite a while now, and like you talked about, you really do stay at this one level. It's kind of a drag a little bit.
Yeah.
But overall, especially the first probably 6 or 7 tracks, I really just dig the overall sound. I really liked all those.
Yeah. I actually totally agree with you on that criticism of like it's a little too long, and saying that I feel like from Dark Side to All Herb, so Dark Side being track 1, All Herb being track 7, is perfect. I love it so much. And then kind of from there, it starts to kind of lose me a little bit. Last thing too, there's a song called Don't Shoot toward the back of the album. There's just this one other lyrical thing that I want to just bring up really quick, where he says, "They was digging in my pockets, I was digging in my pockets. You was looking for a light, I was looking for a lighter. I was fucking with the fire in the worst way." So it's just, when you pull back the haze, this man is just really saying some really compelling stuff about his life. He's got stuff to offer. But Jake, and actually I meant to bring this up. I remember whenever we were talking about Clairo in episode 2, you were saying that it's, much more quiet album for her. The Jack Antonoff production kind of starts to invade that a little bit. But overall, it made you want to kind of put your ear a little closer to what she was saying. That's kind of what Isaiah Rashad did with me on this album, where I feel like when he was mumbling, I was like, dude, like, you've got such a great story I can tell. It made me want to put a closer ear to really understand and pull apart what he was saying. And I just love that kind of puzzle box approach. But again, not a perfect record, probably too long. The song, there's one particular song I really don't like. I don't like the 9/3 freestyle, and I don't like what she said as much. But R.I.P. Young, Claymore, Headshots for the Locals, All Herb, Don't Shoot. And then actually the last 2 songs I'm really all about. But yeah, Isaiah Rashad, House is Burning. All right, Jake and Devan, tell me about a little album. They said it was going to be a little album for them. Tell me about Pressure Machine by the Killers.
Pressure Machine by the Killers. So Reed, you were just talking about The Grower, the album that the first time you listen to it might not click. And as you give it repeat listens, it kind of, you sit with it, and more and more you learn to appreciate the album.
Yeah.
This is not that.
Okay.
This is the opposite of a grower. This is a dyer. The first time I listened to this album, I was pretty with it. Second time, less so. Third time, even less. By the fourth time, I didn't think it was very good.
Wow.
I'm not a fan of Pressure Machine, Reed.
Okay. Wow.
I think that it is Bruce Springsteen mockery by way of imitation.
Okay.
They're trying so hard to be Bruce Springsteen that it almost comes across as a parody, and unintentionally so. Like, I know they're not trying to parody Bruce Springsteen, but they're leaning into it so hard that it almost becomes a mockery of that sound. Sometimes that influence comes through in an inspired way, but then other times you get songs like, what's the name of it? Terrible Thing or Terrible Town or something like that.
Desperate Things or Terrible Thing.
Terrible
Those
Thing,
are both song titles from this album.
Yeah, that should tell you everything you need to know. Terrible Thing. I listened to that song, and even on the first listen, I was like, okay, somebody listened to Nebraska and thought they could write something that would fit on that album, and it just doesn't fit. Like, it's not that good. Other Springsteen pastiche crops up here and there. There are songs that sound like they could have been on Tunnel of Love, but less good. There are songs that sound like they could have been on The River, but less good. And none of it really hits that that transcendent majesty that Bruce Springsteen is really known for. On top of that, I found the dialogue bits that start most of the songs to be very intrusive and very on the nose. Especially like the song with Phoebe Bridgers about the horses.
Yes.
The very beginning of that one, I was like, all right, come on, laying it on a little thick there. And then the song starts and it's about exactly the theme that the story talks about. And it just drove me up a wall, because when you listen to a Springsteen album, he doesn't have to do that.
Yeah.
When you listen to The River, you don't need to know exactly the context behind what that song's about or why he wrote it. You listen to it and it comes through. Yeah. It's clear.
Yeah.
And in this album, it seems like they're trying to spell everything out for me. It'd be like if you were to read like a classic novel, and then every other sentence, the author was saying, the theme of this next sentence is blank. And it just drives me crazy. I could not get behind it. And the more I listened to this album, the more grating it became, because as I became more familiar with the songs, and a lot of albums, you get a chance to really dig in. Like, that's where the good stuff happens. Fourth, fifth listen, and you hear lyrics you haven't heard before, and you're like, whoa. but I already knew everything by the fourth or fifth listen because they're telling me exactly what to think about the songs. And especially coming off last year's album, Imploding the Mirage, which I adore. I think that's a fantastic album. I was just so disappointed by Pressure Machine. Like, really a letdown in every way for me.
Yeah. Devan, what was your take?
So I listened to this one, I think, twice through this week. And I would say 3 tracks in, I already hate this town. This town really sucks, and I don't want to go back there ever again.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to have left this town by now. It's I think, like you said, it's one of those where, especially with the lead-ins, and they're sort of like a lot of like either spoken word or at times it's just like recordings of like random conversations, that sort of thing. It is too on the nose. And even like you were talking about specifically with that track with Phoebe Bridgers in a grotesque way. And it's just so in your face. And I think it's to your point where you're talking about maybe not so much being able to have those emotions come across so well in the songwriting that it's sort of replaced by just putting it here.
Yeah.
And it doesn't flow as well.
It's a show don't tell kind of thing, right? Yeah.
And I think especially if you wanted a song, or in this case, a full album about a town that you don't like, Courtney Barnett has a song called Depreston. And I think she does such a great job of putting you in the person's shoes, putting you in that town. And yeah, that town sucks, but it's done in an endearing way that you actually want to know more about it.
Yeah.
This town, I was done with it by 2-3 tracks in. I was ready to be gone.
Sure.
Well, I imagine if like Bruce Springsteen started the song Atlantic City with a monologue about, "Hi, I'm a man who's down on his luck and looking for work, and the only work I can get is from criminals.
Right.
Well, they blew up the chicken man," and it just doesn't work. You're spelling it all out.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
Right.
See, I was really interested too in y'all's takes on this, because I know in some of the pre-release, materials and just narrative that I've heard about this album, it's Brandon Flowers reflecting on his upbringing in a small Christian town. And I know that both of you were kind of born in that as well. Did it feel familiar at all, or did it feel like this weird exploitation?
Might have felt claustrophobic for me.
Yeah.
I thought I was being taken back. But I think that is so ripe for a great album.
Yeah.
That there could be a great album there. But again, it's just the laying it on too thick.
Yeah.
That's the number one thing.
Yeah.
That and the Springsteen pastiche.
Yeah.
Like, especially terrible thing where it was so clear that it was just riffing off of Nebraska.
Totally.
It just drives me up a wall.
Totally.
Yeah.
I will say, so again, this is probably the album out of the What's on Q mix that I listen to the least. But when the Killers were like, all right, what do we do in the pandemic? We locked down. We made this stripped down album about this really serious thing. In one way, I was like really intrigued, because I feel like the Killers are just known for bombast and big Vegas kind of like showmanship or whatever. So for them to shrink a little bit and try something more intimate, I was like, that could be interesting if they pull it off. But I feel like by track 1, when the guitars were wailing and everything, I was like, you guys can't chill, can you?
Well, and it's like, did you two ever make an acoustic album? No, because they can't. And the Killers are the same way.
Yeah.
They're both bands of bombast, and bombast is not inherently bad, despite what Reed may say. But here it just doesn't work. It's not the right time for that. And just a little bit more prudence and self-awareness would have been good. Anyway, that's my last word for Pressure Machine. I'm out.
So here's the thing.
Oh, is this your take?
They made a mistake, and it's the wrong format.
Okay.
So what they did is they put this very much in your face. You're very familiar with this town by the end of the album.
Right.
You're familiar with the characters. You've been in their shoes. Even too long. You don't want to be there for very long. But I think what they've done is set up an excellent true crime podcast. That's what this should have been, because you've got the bits where it's recorded. You know these characters. You feel like you're part of this town. You've been there.
Yeah.
You've got these weird mysteries. Did that kid actually burn the house down? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that police officer going to get caught for murdering the husband of the woman he's sleeping with? I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll find out. That kid who is closeted, that's thinking of ending it all, what's going to happen there? That kid they tied to a flagpole, what happened to him?
I heard about that.
We'll figure it out in the next episode of Pressure Machine, a podcast by the Killers.
I was going to call it K-Town. Where the K
there we go. Yeah.
stands for Killers.
Whoa, subtle, Jake, subtle.
About as subtle as these opening monologues.
That's it. Yes.
If there's one compliment I'll give, is that I think it was the song Cody that I listened to, and like there was some lyric about a miracle drug coming down the mountain or something that I just thought was evocative, just really kind of stuck in my mind. And some of the harmonies and stuff were good. There was one song that kind of gave me like a Fleet Foxes vibe a little bit, which is what I think I was expecting from this album. It's just a woodsier Killers. And again, I just feel like
Brandon Flowers too. Here's the other thing. Could you find a singer who's less like Bruce Springsteen?
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, not many. They're like maybe like Robin Pecknell from Fleet Foxes. That's really about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just didn't work for me. Okay. I said I had the last word. Now this is my new last word.
There we go. Yeah.
Keep piling it on. Keep piling it on. But no, okay. So Pressure Machine, not about this group. Maybe Bear Kyle really likes this one. Maybe it appeals to his forest sensibilities. Now, let's go ahead and move on to today's.
Only Reed laughed.
Listeners, if you laugh, please tweet at me. For today's title track, we're going to be discussing the label that no artist wants to find themselves tagged with, the one-hit wonder. The one-hit wonder. So not only are we going to be discussing what the one-hit wonder is, we've also brought 3 artists that we feel deserve a second chance, deserve to be taken out of the one-hit wonder prison and celebrated for everything else that they offer, other than maybe this one song that we don't like as much. But we're also going to talk about the nature of one-hit wonders as well. Gentlemen, how do you guys define a one-hit wonder? I'm interested. Is it a person with one hit?
I think a one-hit wonder is capable of having another song or two that did okay. But I think for the most part, it's a band that hit one song so well that either they can't escape the fame of that song, or they can never live up to it again, or capture whatever that magic was. For me.
I like that. It's more of kind of it's not only like, did they have one song that charted, but it's also, colloquially, like what do people associate with that one band?
Yeah. I mean, a band can be a one-hit wonder and have plenty of material that is worthy of being listened to. But it really is just all about that dominance of the one song.
Yeah. How often, so with most one-hit wonders, whether it's the ones that we're going to, supposedly talk about today or elsewhere, are those songs generally good? Do you feel like do they deserve to be remembered for, and have that staying power? Or is it more of like a moment in time?
Well, that's a case-by-case basis. Like you're going to have some songs that are just immediately catchy and you want to listen to for the rest of your life. I Will Forever Stand Tub Thumping by Chumbawamba. I think it's just so fun. And then you're going to have songs where by the third time you're already sick of it. They can go away forever. Like Safety Dance by Men Without Hats.
I don't know if I know Safety Dance, but I
bet
bet
you can dance if you want to. Leave your friends behind.
That's the other thing about one-hit wonders is sometimes I feel like it's not those songs that by title. It's just it's a melody or a lyric, and you're like, oh yeah, sure.
Oftentimes added into things like commercials, that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah. I actually knew Reed was preparing for this podcast because I saw on Spotify he was listening to a song by the band Aha, but it wasn't Take On Me.
Yeah.
And so I was like, Reed's doing some investigative journalism over here.
That was a fun time where I was laying in bed with my fiance and I was like, do you know Aha? And she was like, no. And I was like,
you do though.
Take On Me. Yeah. And it's got the great music video where he falls into the freezer or whatever. And she was like, no. And so, but we saw that Aha actually had, and this is a great case for a one-hit wonder, they had like 5 other songs that technically charted that did well, but we had never heard any of them. Did not recognize a one. So yeah, the needle flies pretty wild.
Yeah, that's the other thing is one-hit wonders. I feel like it's possible that as time goes on, more bands become one-hit wonders.
Sure.
So
that's
like,
the thing.
At the time, maybe you remember 3, 4, 5 songs. Like maybe right now we remember that Fun released We Are Young and Some Nights.
Yeah.
But maybe give it 10 years and now all we remember is We Are Young.
And how much people hate Jack Antonoff now.
Yeah, especially Jake.
I don't hate Jack Antonoff. I hated his production on the Claro album.
That's fair.
And the Bleachers album that he did. That was also not good.
He's going to keep listing things in a minute.
And everything he's done with Lana Del Rey. And his name.
His name? Antonoff?
Say it real slow.
Jack Antonoff.
We'll talk after the podcast.
Oh no.
Oh wait, no.
There it is.
I get it.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Why would you name your son Jack if that were your last name?
That's
bad idea.
Yeah.
Mr. and Mrs. Antonoff. Why did you do it? Jake, tell me about the band that many people probably consider a one-hit wonder that you would like to make a case on for a greater appreciation.
Yeah, so last week I talked about some Tex-Mex legends, ZZ Top. I got some more Tex-Mex legends today. It is the band Los Lonely Boys, who are probably easily most well-known for their, I think, 03 or 04 song, Heaven, which you have probably heard this song.
You definitely have.
For sure.
From the first 5 or 6 seconds, you'd be like, yeah, I've heard that.
You hear the guitar.
Instantly iconic guitar lick, yeah. And Heaven is an awesome song. It is chill, it is smooth, it is crisp, it is catchy. I find myself humming it. They've got these impeccable harmonies where their three voices all blend together. But Los Lonely Boys are three brothers. They are Henry Garza, Jojo Garza, and Ringo Garza. The second best band whose drummer's name is Ringo. And they had been recording together. They actually played, their father, Henry Garza Sr., was a band leader for a very long time. And since they were children, they played with their dad. And then as they, came of age, they formed their own band together. And really, you can hear their influences so clearly in the music. Probably most chiefly, there is certainly some ZZ Top in there, but most definitely Santana and Stevie Ray Vaughan. Those are going to be the two artists that you most clearly hear in these songs. And Heaven is just this smooth, soulful, light song, which actually has kind of a dark background to it. I don't remember the exact details, but I believe the guitarist, Henry Garza Jr., I think it was maybe his wife and child were in like a car accident, and he was afraid that they were going to die, and he was like in misery or something. I forget the exact details. I probably should have looked that up before the podcast. But it's got this like really dark background. So the chorus, "How Far Is Heaven," is more of a plea. Oh. But then when you listen to the song, it's so jovial and happy, you don't even realize it. But that song's great. But everything else they've written is so much more a showcase of their talents. Yeah. Henry Garza is one of the most underrated guitarists I have ever heard. He has the same chops as Carlos Santana. He could almost stand toe-to-toe with Stevie Ray Vaughan. He is right up there with the best blues and Latin guitarists that have ever held the instrument. The man can absolutely shred. And then on top of that, his rhythm section. Jojo Garza plays usually a 6-string bass, so he has a more expressive range, and he is not afraid to move. I talked about how Dusty Hill was so good because he held down the bottom in the last episode. Jojo Garza likes to kind of be a counter melody on his bass, but he doesn't overplay. He just has kind of a counter melody. It's really good. And then Ringo Garza tears up the drum kits like nobody else. Like he's just so good at locking into a groove, especially with the bass. And I talked about ZZ Top being such a tight power trio. I would say Los Lonely Boys is probably even tighter. Like every piece fits together perfectly, almost to the point where if you don't like music that sounds crisp and perfect, this probably isn't going to be the band for you because they really are clean. But I think about on their first album, their self-titled album, in addition to Heaven, there's a song called Crazy Dream that has a couple of insane guitar solos. There's a song called Nobody Else that I love. And then really their big showcase, this 9-minute long blues Santana-esque workout called Onda that, has a very short verse, but is mostly just a guitar freak out. Just Henry Garza going crazy on it. It is such a good song. And their other albums, Sacred, Forgiven, and Rock Pango, all also excellent. Great stuff going on there with them on all 4 of those albums. And then they haven't done anything in a long time. The bassist, Jojo Garza, has decided that he no longer wants to be in the band, so I think they might be done. But they gave us 4 awesome albums with a bunch of great songs. So don't just listen to Heaven. Give all their catalog a listen, because you're going to find one of the better throwback rock bands of this century so far.
I'm so mad that there wasn't more Los Lonely Boys representation on Guitar Hero, because it just makes so much sense. Yeah. And listeners too, I should say that Jake made all of us a playlist called the Los Loneliest Boys, which is very appropriately titled, to give us kind of a taste of everything beyond Heaven. And he's absolutely right. The guitar playing on this is just so fire. And Jake, you were talking about Santana. You were talking about Stevie Ray Vaughan. I heard some Hendrix too, quite frankly. Yeah. I mean, just like you said, I feel like if you just like the sound of guitar playing well, and that is just your kind of where you want to be. Like this, can't be overlooked for sure.
Right. And I think too, like you were saying, when it comes to just like this band sounding so clean and so well put together, I think it's something that you can only get from a trio of siblings that have been playing together for as long as they have.
Yeah.
Like it's just impeccable. And I think one thing that I really enjoyed was, especially when you're talking about a band where so much of the focus is on the guitar playing specifically.
Yeah.
A lot of times you'll hear either the drummer or especially the bassist sort of get drowned out and it's not so focused on. But there are times where they really, hey, the guitarist like takes it down for a sec and then the bassist really just takes off for a bit. And you're like, oh, he's just matching him. Like he's right there with him, like step for step. And it's just as good, even if it's not what you're sort of anticipating going into it.
And then even with good guitar and good bass and good drums, then they can all sing.
Right.
Like they have these perfectly interlocking harmonies and they know like just where to deploy the big harmonic swell. Like when you hit that perfect chord at the end coming out of a verse or into a chorus, or when you're right out of a guitar solo, like on the song Onda, he'll shred for a while and then it's like Onda, and all three of them stacked together and it just comes through so powerfully. There's such a good band, really unjustly overlooked.
You cannot be sad listening to this band.
It's very... I almost kind of got, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way, but it sounds very wholesome in a way.
Yeah.
Like it sounds so kind of family friendly and like very relatable. It's about like general heartbreak or just, feelings that are not super complicated, but I feel like that's not the point of the music anyway. It's just to...
And I know they're devoutly Catholic, I believe.
Okay.
So like they have like a slightly religious bent to their music as well, which you can kind of, you get hints of that in the song Heaven.
Yeah.
And then even in the names of some of their albums, Sacred, Forgiven, like it's there, but it's not at the forefront. This is not like a Christian band. It's just their outlook is maybe more positive and hopeful than your typical mid-2000s rock and roll.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I would say too, like if the song Heaven has ever appealed to you, like the rest of it will for sure. It's yeah. I want to bring up the band that I have as my one hit wonder that deserves to be taken off of that category, which is the band Cake.
Now I want to just throw an asterisk on this and say, I disagree. I think Cake is a 2-hit wonder.
They are 2-hit wonders. That's
true.
Yeah.
The Distance and Short Skirt Long Jacket were both pretty big hits. But like you said a little bit earlier, Reed, before we were on the podcast, a lot of times it seems like people either really know one or the other.
Yeah.
So we're gonna give them a pass.
Yeah, totally. Cake is a band from Sacramento, California. They've released 3 songs that you may be familiar with. Jake's named 2 of them. So you have The Distance, you have Never There, you have Short Skirt Long Jacket, and you have The Distance. Never There is actually the one that, I guess in terms of one hit wonder official status, peaked on the Billboard Hot 100 at number 1 on December 4th, 1998. Spent 33 weeks on the charts, which kind of blows my mind because, quite frankly, Never There is one of my least favorite Cake songs of all time. I find it really annoying. I just think, if you've never heard, and again, you've definitely heard Cake based on these 3 songs, but they combine so many different things where they're a little indie rock. They do some kind of white boy funk here and there. They get a little hip hop. They get a little country. They kind of go wherever their muse is, which is something I've always appreciated about them. But for me, the song Never There is an example of that kind of white boy funk that annoys me more than anything. The Distance is more of this driving kind of race car thing. It peaked at number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100. And then Short Skirt Long Jacket. Jake, you mentioned this a little earlier. If you ever watched the NBC show Chuck, it was the intro.
Yeah, it was definitely rocketed to higher status from being on that show.
Yeah. Completely.
Fun little side story. My mom has this like habit of having bands that she doesn't listen to at all, but they have one song that just tickles her to death and she'll be delighted when it comes on. So like she loves the song Know Your Enemy by Rage Against the Machine.
Oh, okay.
And she loves Shadrach by the Beastie Boys. But Cake is another one of those bands.
Okay.
When Short Skirt Long Jacket comes off, she just starts laughing with joy. She loves this one particular Cake song. She couldn't tell you a single other Cake song or anything about them.
Yeah. There you go.
But she loves this one song.
And this one song too, to me, it does not quite fall into the trap that Never There does, where it's still a little funky, but the lyrics are so strange and specific and weird that it kind of transcends all of that. And Jake, it's funny that you mentioned that your mom has a special connection to Cake, because I got into Cake because of my mom. She was the one who kind of saved me from this one hit wonder thing. where when I was really getting into music in high school, I was really into Spoon, I was really into Beck, and she was like, okay, you should try Comfort Eagle, which is the album that Short Skirt Long Jacket is on. And I was like, really? That song's okay. And she's like, trust me. And she's right. When you listen to that album, it is just this like funky, smooth, awesome little collection that, again, kind of straddles that line between indie rock, hip hop, and funk. But I feel like does it in a way that it never is quite as gimmicky as some of Cake can be. There are some more kind of sincere moments where I feel like they are, I don't know, trying to write a decent song. And I feel like that's Cake's greatest pitfall, is that their sardonic sense of humor can get the best of them sometimes. And it makes for a fun listen, but I think that there's more there. Devan, what's your take on Cake?
I've always really liked Cake, kind of secretly.
Kind of secretly.
It's one of those bands where I'm like, I never really have jumped into them deeply. Like I've never just sat through and been like, yeah, I'm going to listen to every single album that they have.
Yeah.
But it's one of those that are like, when they come on, I always enjoy it regardless of what the song is.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you don't like Never There. That was actually my intro to Cake, weirdly enough. And so like I heard that and I was like, I dig this. Interesting. I just like their sound in general. And it is a mix of a bunch of different things. But I think especially on some of these like major hits, the sound that they put together, it just works so well for this track that it obviously it was going to go somewhere.
Yeah, right.
But I think the other part, like you said, I think some of what did sort of hold them back is they're trying a little too hard to be funny and weird and interesting. And I think if they'd have let that go, it probably could have taken them even further.
Totally.
But it's that lyricism that kind of works for me at times, because it's like equal parts super obscure and you have no idea what they're talking about, but at the same time, incredibly specific.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I know exactly what that reference means, but I have no idea what that means in the greater context of this song.
Yeah.
Like how you related these two things together, I don't understand, but I'm here for it.
Totally.
I want to go back to something you just mentioned, though, because I think it can tell us a little bit about one-hit wonders just in general.
Yeah.
Sure.
Is Devan, you mentioned that if Cake had gotten past that sardonic humor thing, that might have helped them unlock some different level of Cake, I guess.
A second layer.
Another layer,
A second layer of Cake, yeah. Ooh, this is fun. But I think that's interesting because with a lot of one-hit wonders, you'll see that they have that one big song, but then the rest of their career is them trying to escape that song and branch out into different genres. And like, can y'all name another Chumbawamba song?
Nope.
Nope, didn't think so.
Fresh out, yeah.
But with Cake, as Reed mentioned, they're like kind of a pseudo one-hit wonder. They've got a lot of songs that people know pretty well. They've had several albums that have had some success. And I think that's because they actually leaned into their strength. I don't need Cake to be anything other than what Cake is.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like, I think that it's actually been a benefit to them.
Yeah.
If they had Never There or had just had The Distance, and then they had gone off to do some like very earnest guitar rock album, I don't know that we'd be talking about that album. So like the fact that we can talk about Comfort Eagle and Prolonging the Magic, which is my favorite Cake album, I think that's because they leaned so heavily into their strength, which is something that not all one-hit wonders do.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, Jake. That's a really good point. And I feel like with Cake too, it's just this weird thing where you're either kind of with it or you're not. And I can see why a lot of people maybe wouldn't want to listen to Cake. I find it super refreshing sometimes. And I love that you mentioned Prolonging the Magic, because one of the strangest songs I've ever heard is called When You Sleep. And the lyric is, when you sleep, where do your fingers go? What do your fingers know?
That's some nap eyes stuff. Yeah.
When I was kind of first becoming friends with Reed, Devan, he gave me a playlist of Cake songs to kind of introduce me to them, because I wasn't super familiar with their stuff. And that song was on that playlist. But another song that was on the playlist was a song also from Prolonging the Magic called Satan Is My Motor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is my favorite Cake song. It's got this sick little guitar, like, by the way, underrated guitar playing
Yes.
on Cake, which we could, put a pin in that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I remember Reed told me when he gave me this playlist that he was afraid to put Satan Is My Motor on it at first because he didn't know if it would offend my religious sensibilities.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't like aware of where I stood at the time. And he knew I worked for a church. So like reasonable assumption.
Yeah.
The fact that I was a church employee at the time. But no, I love Satan Is My Motor. It's fantastic. Such a good song. But yes, guitar. So good.
Yep.
Guitarist, Greg Brown has such a distinct style. And Jake, you're more of a musician than I am, so you may be able to kind of nail what he's doing or what he sounds like. But for me, songs like Commissioning a Symphony in C and Arco Arena from Comfort Eagle, Frank Sinatra from Fashion Nugget, Cool Blue Reason, and Sheep Go to Heaven from Prolonging the Magic, all examples of this dude who, I guess it's just like he's on the high E string a lot, and it's just this really bassy kind of sound. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, I think if you want like a just one very short clip of what he does on guitar so well, go into Short Skirt, Long Jacket. And the second time that they do the long jacket, that part, listen to what he's doing on the guitar. It's like this. It's almost like a bluegrass sensibility translated into this cleaner indie rock sound.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah, no.
But it's so unique.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing, man. I mean, with Cake, you can listen to Comfort Eagle, you can listen to Prolonging the Magic, Fashion Nugget, and I think you're going to be really surprised. You're always going to be surprised with Cake, but especially, that they have such great material.
And Cake is the best surprise.
Big time. Devan, I know that you want to bring up another kind of late 90s, early 2000s torchbearer.
Yeah. And I think this is one where it's pretty clear that they are a one-hit wonder. It's Fountains of Wayne.
Yeah.
We've all heard Stacy's Mom.
Yeah.
She's got it going on. We know that. And you know it from the song. You know it from a lot of it being played at arenas, at sporting events, that sort of thing. It comes on. Everybody knows it. You may not even know the band, to be honest. And especially like you were talking about, like as things age, bands become even more one-hit wonders than they were because whatever is commercially successful stays that way for a while, and that's all you hear. But this is a band that they had a bit of commercial success before this album called Welcome Interstate Managers, which is a bizarre album title, but I dig it. They had actually had pretty good success with the album prior to this and had gone on tour and then been dropped by Atlantic, just straight up dropped. And they took some time away to kind of like figure out what they wanted to do. They put this album together when they came back together and they dropped it out there. And Stacy's Mom took off, and it's by far their most popular song. It's by far the most listened to song. I think the gap between it and the next song on their catalog is 250 million listens.
Wow.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is, like I said, this is a band where you've heard this song, you may or may not even know that this is who it is, and you've probably not heard much of anything else from them.
Yeah.
And I think that's unfortunate because I think on that album, especially just the first three songs, you've got Mexican Wine, you've got Bright Future in Sales, and then Stacy's Mom. Those are all pretty weird, different songs. And I think they're all really solid, but that's the one song that you're ever going to hear for the most part.
Yeah. We were talking earlier about Pet Symmetry and Kyle from the wilds of the Pacific Northwest said that, he feels like that's what he wants Weezer to sound like. This is what to me, the song Mexican Wine is what I want Weezer to be. It's like, I want them to kind of freeze forever, like cryogenically just into that sound. I feel like it was such a perfect, mix of that kind of like pop rock sensibility with kind of the quirky lyrics, with just that high melody. It was really, really great. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
I think that's the thing that they do really well is that weird sort of like offbeat references to different things, and it really puts you in a different place. And so like with that album, I think they do a really interesting job of both putting you in the shoes of like this young adolescent kid, but also like in a song like Bright Future in Sales, in like where we are right now in our lives, where we're stuck at a job, we're working at it nonstop, and like that's our life from now on. And I think it's that sort of mix where half the album is from one point of view and half is from the other, where I don't know, it's a different mindset of an album than I'm used to, but I really dug it.
Way more like emotion and complicated feelings than a song about being really into your friend's mom.
Right.
Yeah. Would lead you to believe. Yeah.
Another one of my favorite things about One Hit Wonders is trying to predict who the like current popular artists, which ones are going to end up One Hit Wonders. Because I don't know about y'all, but when I heard like Somebody That I Used to Know by Gautier, I immediately knew that dude wasn't having a single other
Right.
hit song. Like you could just lock in. You're like, yeah, this guy is going to be a one hit wonder. And so I'm just looking around. Like, is I don't know. I don't even know particularly what songs are super popular right now. And I feel like with TikTok, the whole game has kind of changed.
Yeah.
Like we could probably have a whole episode on how TikTok has changed the way pop music works.
Totally.
Right.
So I'm not going to get into that, but it's just really fun to try to pick out who's going to not do much more than this.
Yeah.
In the preparation for this episode, Jake, I love how vehemently when we were talking about like, all right, so who are we going to bring up as like one hit wonders that we want to resurrect and correct or whatever, you were just so like, it can't be Gautier. If you bring up Gautier, I swear to God.
If anybody brings up bad Phil Collins, I will not have any part of it.
One thing though about Fountains of Wayne is that it was led by a guy named Adam Schlesinger who just recently died, and part of beyond his time as kind of the originator of Stacy's mom, also wrote a lot of the songs on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, the TV show, which I know a lot of people love. And it's funny when you go back and listen to those songs and you compare it with Stacy's mom, you hear the melodic sensibility so much. So R.I.P. though, quite the master craftsman for sure.
He's definitely one where like going back through the list of things that he either wrote or produced on, it's incredible. Just like the range, like he worked on so many TV shows, so many different albums, as well as like theater productions. It's crazy. But some of the bands that he worked with, the Monkees, talking about bands that are absolutely one-hit wonders, the Click Five and Bowling for Soup.
Bowling for Soup, I know. What did Click Five make?
Oh man, I don't
hold
even remember.
on. I forget the name of the song.
God, I'd completely forgotten they existed until you just said their name. Something deep triggered in the back of my brain though. Like when you said Click Five, I was like, that
just
was
the girl,
a band.
just the girl I'm looking for. You've heard it. It's very early 2000s rock. Yeah, they never did a thing. They never did a thing after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like Click Five is almost like, I don't know, like if the Backstreet Boys got guitars. I
Yeah,
don't know.
it's kind of that.
Bizarre.
Yeah. But it's just funny to me that like he worked with so many other bands, but especially one of the ones that I saw, he worked with Jonas Brothers, which I thought was funny.
Okay.
But another one was Motion City Soundtrack, which was a pop rock, sort of punk rock band, especially more popular like late 2000s.
Yeah.
And they're still doing stuff now. But that was a band where I've always heard that connection. And then when I saw it there, I was like, that makes total sense why I hear that connection there.
For sure.
There's something too talk about dating yourself. There's something about the Click Five that sounds like such an early 2000s artist name. You put a numeral in there.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm like, yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think too, we're getting at something. There's really two types of one-hit wonders.
Yeah.
There's the one-hit wonder that has the song that comes out of nowhere and takes the world by storm. The Carly Rae Jepsen one-hit wonder. Call Me Maybe comes out of nowhere, and all of a sudden we know who she is. And then you have the workhorse one-hit wonder who tried and tried and tried for years and years and years and never got anywhere. And then they finally had their Stacy's mom moment.
That's it.
And then nothing else happened after that.
Yeah.
Portugal the Man also falls into this category with the song Feel It Still. If we remember that one.
I do.
Because that band, I think that was off their 8th album,
Yeah.
Woodstock.
Wow.
And then they finally had it, and then they haven't done anything since. So
Yeah.
it's just interesting. There's really two categories here. The explosive one and then the workhorse. I'm
Yeah.
going to coin those terms.
Yeah.
Explosive wonder and the workhorse wonder.
You heard it on the Proof of Sound podcast in August of 2021. Yeah. Man, one-hit wonders. Listeners, I really hope that you guys go back and explore these bands. I think they all really have something to offer. Before we move on to Jake closing us out with what do we call it? A flash ranking? I don't really know.
The lightning round.
The lightning round, yes. Anything else to add about one-hit wonders?
One very random last one.
What you got?
The band Walk the Moon.
Okay.
Blew up a few years ago with the song Shut Up and Dance.
Probably another one that I have to hear.
Yeah,
I
you
bet I've heard
absolutely
You
heard
know
it.
this
The
song.
lyrics are Shut Up and Dance. Yeah.
With
no,
me.
Yes. That is a band that I think that song was one of the worst things to happen to them.
Okay.
They blew up from it, and everything else since then I've just really not enjoyed.
Ooh.
But their album prior to that, their self-titled album, Walk the Moon, that's a guilty pleasure album for me. I really dig that one almost start to finish.
Wow.
And it's just a groovy, fun dance album. Like I said earlier about the Los Lonely Boys, you can't be sad listening to that album.
Yeah.
It's just pure sugar pop fun. I dig that one. I've just really not liked anything since they got more popular from that Shut Up and Dance song.
Ooh, that's always the thing too with maybe not, I don't even know if it's a one-hit wonder thing, but I think all the time about Modest Mouse, who are immensely successful, don't really belong in the one-hit wonder category. But if there's two songs people know them for, it's Float On and Dashboard. And those are the two Modest Mouse songs that are at the bottom of my list in terms of the ranking. I hate those songs.
And then from that point forward, didn't really tend to even do music that was particularly great. It's amazing how many bands will hit like really big.
Yeah.
And then the remainder of their work just doesn't sit as well. And maybe that's just like, especially if you knew the band before.
Right.
There's that kind of like, I was here first bias. But sometimes it's real. Sometimes bands really do like get in their own heads.
Yeah, no, and not to harp on the Isaac Brock thing, but I feel like that was some of his more cheerful songwriting, where before he was a bit more of a nihilist in like a really big way. And it's weird to be like, oh, I don't like your songs anymore because they're not as like dark and your worldview has changed, but at the same time there is something to be said of like what's relatable and what's
and
not.
that's how we've circled back to Lorde. Basically.
Oh man,
who by the way was an artist who I initially thought was for sure a one-hit wonder. I thought Royals was it, and then Melodrama blew everyone away because it's so good.
Yeah, great stuff. All right, well, this has been the Proof of Sound podcast, episode 4. I would love to hear what our listeners have for one-hit wonders that deserve that second listen, that second chance. If you have one, we would love for you to go on Twitter or Instagram, tag, comment, DM us at Proof of Sound Pod. That's Proof of Sound POD. Maybe we'll talk about your pick on the next episode. Reconsider. Now, as always, Jake, what's that lightning round?
Yes, so our lightning round is going to take a slightly different shape this week because I want a little bit of listener participation. So if you're listening to this podcast in your car or at home or at work, wherever, I want you to try to play along with us on this lightning round. This is the 2010s One-Hit Wonder Pop Quiz. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to say the name of a one-hit wonder single from the last 10-ish years of music.
Okay.
They came out from between the years 2010 and 2019.
Okay.
And I want you, gentlemen, to try to remember the name of the artist that recorded that song.
I think we have a shot at the artist, not the album. No question.
No, you do not get the album. That's way too hard. I couldn't do the album. But here are 10 one-hit wonders, and you're going to give me the artist. Yes, Reed.
All right. I'm raising my hand. I'm in class.
Flashbacks to earlier today.
I know.
Are we answering just at the same time? Like, is it just...
If you know it,
go.
give it a shot.
All right.
Maybe pause to give our listeners just a moment.
Okay.
If you know it right away, wait a couple seconds. But the very first one, they have a song called Rude. As in, why you gotta be so rude.
I know the song. I don't know the artist, but I know what you're talking about.
I knew this was going to be harder than it seemed.
Yeah.
That band was called Magic with an exclamation point at the end.
Man, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Canadian white reggae. Exciting. The next song, this one's probably a little easier. I Don't Care. Or really, I Love It. I think might have been the name of the song. One of the two.
I know this song.
I forget the name of it. I Love It. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah. I hear it in my head. I can sing the melody.
The one that comes to mind is Charlie XCX, but I don't think
she was
right.
the feature.
Yeah.
She was on it.
Man.
So half credit.
Okay. Sweet. Half a point.
Yeah. Doing so
Awesome.
good, Devan. Damn it. I don't remember.
The artist was Iconopop.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. First one I do not remember the song. That one I definitely do. Okay.
Number 3, That's Not My Name. They call me Stacy. Reed is...
You got it?
Flailing wildly. What do you have, Reed?
If you know me, you know I flail wildly all the time. The Ting Tings.
The Ting
There
Tings.
you
Yes,
go.
correct.
Okay.
Awesome. Number 4, this one will take you back. We have the Harlem Shake. The Harlem Shake. Do we remember who did the Harlem Shake? The video craze that swept the nation.
Who did the Harlem Shake? You could pick
Everyone.
anyone. Yeah.
But who performed the song? The Harlem Shake.
I have an answer. I don't think it's right though.
Go for it. Yeah.
I Love McConan?
Nope.
Okay.
Great guess.
Yeah, I don't have one for
That
this
artist was called Bauer.
Oh.
Bauer. Bauer.
And Jake, you may not know this, but was there something with the Harlem Shake where it was like he put it out and then another bigger artist used it for something?
Oh man, I would really have to go back and look at that.
Okay,
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Number 5, we have The Fox, as in, what does the fox say?
What was that guy's name?
Oh my God.
That duo's name.
Oh, man.
I'll give you a hint. It is a Scandinavianization of an American recording artist's name.
I'm going to be so mad.
Oh, yeah.
I even frustratingly saw this earlier in the week looking up like different one-hit wonders, and I can't remember it.
What you got?
Ylvis.
Okay.
Ylvis. Ylvis.
All right.
Number 6, Am I Wrong? For thinking that this could be something for real. Am I Wrong?
So I remember that song kind of vaguely, but
This
definitely
was
not getting that one.
Nico and Vinz.
Okay.
I think they were a Swedish duo, which, Swedish pop megastars is a subject for another time.
Right.
Oh my God. Listeners, I hope you're doing much better at this than Devan and I are.
Yeah, this is rough. Number 7, Fight Song. Take Back My Life song.
Oh, man.
A lot of dead air.
A lot of dead air. This is bad. Yeah. But I know the song pretty clearly, but I can't tell you who it was.
That was Rachel Platten. Rachel Platten did that one. I'm going to cut the next one because there's no way you're going to get it. What about Best Day of My Life? This is going to be the best day of my life.
I just think of the Bright Eyes song, but I know this.
I'll give you a hint. Ernest Hemingway, F. Scott Fitzgerald,
It's the
Kurt Vonnegut.
it's the American Writers or whatever.
Close. American Authors.
That's what
Yes.
it was. Yes.
American Authors. Yes.
Okay. Does that give me 2 half points?
Yes,
to
you
equal?
have 1 whole point.
We're tight, Devan. We're doing it, bud.
And then for the very last one, and if you don't remember this one, you're going to kick yourselves. Gangnam Style.
Oh yeah, that's Psy.
Sigh.
Psy. Fantastic.
Okay. What-
Look, 2 points to
That's
close
it.
it out.
Yeah.
Well
I like
done.
it.
This has been the Proof of Sound podcast. We have some homework to do because we did really bad on
man.
that quiz. Thank you for listening. As always, find us on social media and respect the Blue Jay. Thanks for listening.
Tweet.